Well, hey, everybody. Thank you so much for the honor to do this today and the honor to serve as the new chair of the Environmental Committee of Rotary. This is our first event, and sure are glad that we're able to do this. 20 years ago today, a very bright, not today, this year, 20 years ago, a very bright and energetic young man spoke at a small meeting at Radnor Lake. And he was selling posters to try to save the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and I bought one of them right here. And that young man is none other than our speaker today, Jeff Barrie. Jeff is a great documentarian. He has made three excellent documentaries, one about the importance of education, of environmental education, another one about the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge called Arctic Quest, which I highly recommend. And then his third one was Kilowatt Hours, which he made in 2008 about the importance of energy conservation, both for the environment and for our health and economy. Jeff is the CEO of the Tennessee Environmental Council. He's worked with the Environmental Council since 2014, became the CEO last year. He is a very committed environmentalist and a great guy. He's an adjunct professor for filmmaking at Lipscomb University, and he has two wonderful children, Lily and Antonina. So Jeff, let me turn it over to you.
Thank you, Clark, and Noon Rotary of Nashville. It's a great honor to be here, and I love hearing that story, Clark. Thanks for bringing me back down memory lane there. You've been a good friend over the years in many ways, and I appreciate our friendship. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of those things here, but I do want to say it's a great honor to be here presenting to the Rotary Club here in Nashville, talking about the environment. And it's a big topic, but good news is taking care of it begins at home. And so I'm going to talk about that today. And I have been the CEO of Tennessee Environmental Council for a year and the interim before that for 6 months. But I started with Tennessee Environmental Council in 2014, so I'm going on my 6.5-year anniversary. But I was born in Los Angeles, California, grew up in Southern California. I don't know how I ended up choosing environment or to be a professional environmentalist as my career, but somehow that happened. My early dreams were to be a filmmaker after seeing Star Wars. So I pursued that path, and it took me to UCLA, where my dream was to major in filmmaking. And so I applied for the film school 2 years in a row, and I was rejected 2 years in a row. So God had a different plan in store for me. And it took me that rejection to come to realize that there are classes and there's a course of study about the environment called Environmental Studies, and in the geography program at UCLA. So that was my fallback major, geography and environmental studies. It made my parents very proud. No, they did, really, they are. And so I decided to combine my interest in filmmaking with the environment. And so as Clark was mentioning, I struck out and hit the road with my camera and became an environmental documentary filmmaker. And I made a number of documentaries, which Clark mentioned, and several others on top of those. But this was a life-changing moment for me when I decided to take one of my films, Arctic Quest, across America on a bicycle tour to raise awareness about the environment, about the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and whether or not we should drill for oil there. And there I am biking across southern, probably Arizona or New Mexico, followed by the Prius, which was donated by Toyota. This is the year they launched the Prius, the year 2000 in America, in North America. And so they donated the Prius to follow me along the way of saying, hey, look, we can make these more efficient, fuel-efficient vehicles, save a lot of oil and gas. And so the Prius is pretty commonplace today, but this was biking across America. So I left Los Angeles in February 2000 and got to Washington, D.C. in June that year. And the program worked. I mean, some would call it a publicity stunt, and it was. Our goal was to draw attention, to get attention. So we ended up on the front pages of newspapers across America. This is my buddy Eric, who biked with us for the last week of the journey, and followed by the Prius and a giant oil rig behind us. But then I came to Tennessee, moved here in 2000, July 2000, made a number of new films, the latest of which was Kilowatt Hours, which went national on public television in the year 2008. And then it somehow brought me through that journey to Tennessee Environmental Council. In fact, my first office working as an environmental professional in the year 2000 was a sublease at the Tennessee Environmental Council's office over there in Metro Center, which we're still there today. But I was hired full-time by the TEC in February of 2014. And I will say, in that time, since that time, we have engaged with Rotary and partnered on a number of really cool projects. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the work we've done with Rotary on different aspects of taking care of our local environment. It's been really, really cool.
Hey, Jeff, I think we cannot see your screen. So let's try that again, because I think you've got some great slides to show us.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. So there I am, kid in Southern California, early filmmaking career, 12 years old, Hollywood Hills, with a film camera, an actual movie film camera. And then UCLA, biking across America, followed by the Prius, in Arizona. Front pages of newspapers across America with the message of saving Alaskan wilderness from oil drilling. My film Kilowatt Hours, the cover, as official selection and winner in numerous film festivals, brought me to Tennessee Environmental Council. And there's our the Rotary logo. And so that brings me back to where we are now, literally in this presentation. So our mission is to engage individuals and communities to improve our environment and public health. We were founded in 1970, which is exciting because this December is our 50th anniversary. And that brings me to opportunity number one, is you're all invited to our 50th anniversary online celebration on, thank you, Lily, my daughter Lily, brought me the mail. I'll look at that later. December 10th, online, 7 p.m., come one, come all. We're going to celebrate in a fun way, virtually. But as I said, the environment's a big topic. So our mission is broad, improving our environment, and not just improving it, but engaging individuals in that process in communities. So that's what engagement is all about, is getting people involved, because it's our planet and we're the ones that either cause the problems or create the solutions. And we often do both. In fact, our very nature is to have an impact on the planet. So we broke down the environmental issues into different focus areas. And through our Sustainable Tennessee project, where we bring environmental leaders from across Tennessee to look at how we improve air quality, water quality, transportation, energy, land use, food and farming, solid waste, recycling, and public health. And that's engagement opportunity number two for y'all, is this Friday is our first virtual forum. We've done the Sustainable Tennessee Annual Policy and Practice Forum every year since 2007, but now we're going online for this event. It allows us obviously to do it safely from our homes, as well as invite more people from across Tennessee to participate. And so this week is focused, or this year's forum is focused on equity in the environmental movement. This Friday, 11:30, you can visit tectn.org for any of these opportunities I'm going to share with you. So we have a vision for clean energy, which is renewable power and energy efficiency fuel our economy, basically. And these are vision statements that were developed in these annual meetings over the course of many years. Air and transportation. Hey, speaking of air, I want to talk about COVID briefly, because many of you probably have seen these images, but in the COVID era, between last year, there are some spatial maps that have been done showing the change in air pollution between a year ago and this March, when the stay-at-home mandates were put in place. So this is a year ago, and this is this year. Research done by Descartes Lab. And so I like to show those. I'll toggle back and forth because it's pretty dramatic change in air pollution. Which brings up an interesting point, is that do we need to immobilize our economy in order for the environment to improve? And that's been one of the great debates in the environmental movement, is that if you take care of the environment, it's going to come at the sacrifice or the cost of economic growth and vibrancy, but that's not the case. But that's what happened with COVID. As people are staying at home and factories are shutting down or going on pause, the air quality improved. Did in overnight, literally overnight, what the entire environmental movement of the last 50 years could not do, which was clean up the air. Although, no, we have made tremendous progress in Tennessee and across the nation with cleaner air, and we're doing pretty good overall. But there's always room for improvement. That's the biggest room in my house, is the room for improvement. So we're always looking at what more can we do, and how do we make transportation more efficient and cleaner. It's a big topic. And we do tackle the big topics, and we don't have a plan yet for transportation. We're still developing that one. Farms and food, how do we bring more organic, local produce into the marketplace? Tennessee is home to something like 66,000 farms. And so it's a perfect place to develop more local food infrastructure. Now, solid waste is one of the areas where we have developed a quite active program. Another tidbit about COVID is that in the month in Tennessee alone, in the month of the stay-at-home mandate, trash production to the landfills increased by 50% in many municipalities. It was across Tennessee. So more people staying at home, for some reason, caused us to create more trash. And that's not just residential trash, it's across the board. And that came from the Solid Waste Directors Association of Tennessee. So we're looking at ways, we don't do this just because of COVID, but we started this program in 2018, which is Recycle Right Tennessee. But how do we get materials that are going into the landfill today? Another interesting fact is that we throw away $180 million a year, $180 million worth of recyclable materials into our landfills every year. And something like 70% of the materials going into our landfills are recyclable. So there's a gold mine that we're burying. We're burying valuable resources through the way our infrastructure is currently set up. So we're working to change that. There are more than 20 communities in Tennessee now that have curbside recycling programs. But what we need to do now is make sure people are recycling right. So because if you throw the wrong things in the recycling cart at your curb, and when that gets down to the recycling center, they have to take that whole batch. If you throw the wrong materials in, if it's contaminated, it has to go to the landfill. Because certain things people think are recyclable, like garden hoses or a lot of old toys or batteries, pizza boxes full of crust and food, any containers that have food, those things are contaminants and they ruin the system. A lot of people throw plastic bags in their recycling cart, and plastic bags are a chief contaminant. And so it seems like a good idea to put all your aluminum cans in a plastic bag, nice and neat, drop it in the recycling cart. But when that bag gets to the center, it either has to be sorted out by human hands or it gets stuck in the machines. So it causes a lot of backlogs in the system. So because of contamination, recycling is not as robust as it could be. So we started the Recycle Right program. And that brings me to engagement opportunity number 3 is at tectn.org. You can register for a recycling cart scan. We'll come out, or you can send us some pictures of your recycling cart and what's inside and your trash as well. And we will let you know what things could go in the recycling cart and what things need to come out and go back in the trash. And we've had quite a few people sign up for that. And we've seen improvements by doing a follow-up scan and giving people some tips and pointers on how to do it right. Not only are people throwing away recyclable items, they're also throwing away food waste. The average Tennessee household throws away 8.66 pounds of compostable food waste every week. And this is data that we collected in one of the programs we began a couple years ago called Compost Your Compost. Post meaning we want people to be sharing pictures of their compost pile on Facebook, on social media. And it actually works. It seems kind of funny to think about people are going to post pictures of their trash on social media, but they do, and they ask questions and answer their own questions and help each other out that way. We created a community around composting, but that's a lot of food waste that's still going into our landfills. Food waste being the kitchen scraps, the rotting food and veggies that we're not going to eat. Everyone does it. I do a lot. I throw away, I actually compost now about 20 to 25 gallons a month. And that's a lot of stuff that would be going into the landfill. But as you can see before, here's my compost pile with watermelon scraps in there. And then after 3 months or so, it turns into beautiful, rich soil amendment. So we could be basically taking our food scraps out of the landfill stream and regenerating our Tennessee topsoils with rich, I don't know if you've ever seen what stuff can grow out of a compost pile, but it's a hotbed for growth because there's so many nutrients in that compost. So you spread it in your vegetable garden and create better veggies for you and your family. So we started Compost Your Compost. We have over 1,100 participants that have composted more than 300 tons of food waste, otherwise would have gone into the landfill, now is being turned into topsoil since 2018 when we launched the program. And Recycle Right and the compost program of Tennessee Environmental Council are both supported by grants from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation, so I like to acknowledge them. And those are matching fund grants, which means they reimburse half of our expenses through the program, and then we raise the balance of those funds through grants and donors and sponsors in order to make the program work, those programs. So that's opportunity for engagement number 4. Go ahead and register for Compost Your Compost, even if you already do. I would ask to see a show of hands who composts, because I know a lot of you probably already do, but I can't see your hands. I'll ask you anyway, raise your hand if you compost. I've been composting since the 1980s in Southern California. My dad started a compost pile. We put all the lawn clippings in there. We put all our food in there. So I've been composting for my entire adult life. And now it's really cool to be able to advocate for these kind of programs here in Tennessee. So we look at land use as well. What can we what could we be doing to balance out development with more ecologically friendly land uses? And one example of that is what can be done at your home. And so I'm going to bring back to that. So recycling is something to do at home, composting at home. But what else? Well, how green can you make your yard? And we can be replacing cement with pervious pavement so the rain flows through instead of running off into the stormwater system. Planting more rain gardens and other installations like that. One of the most exciting things, I think, and beneficial things, is to plant a pollinator habitat. And you could carve out a little piece of your lawn and turn it into a garden with flowers where it attracts all the bees and butterflies, right? So this is my front yard, and I carved out this little oval shaped, it's actually a guitar shaped pollinator garden, and planted those are all from seed a couple years ago. And it's beautiful what happens. The transformation is gorgeous. So the things to improve the environment, make our homes better. These are all things you can do at home that we ship all the supplies out if you want to participate in any of these things. But the pollinator flowers do work, obviously. You plant the flowers, they grow, and soon enough you see the bees and butterflies showing up. And that's ecological health. All of our food that we eat is pollinated by natural processes. So the more pollinators we add to environment, the healthier the entire ecosystem is. And by the way, one of our catch lines on our website that we came up with is that the solutions to even the greatest of our environmental challenges, globally and locally, begin at home. The solutions begin at your house. And this is just one of those examples. Now imagine we started a pollinator program where we're inviting people across Tennessee. We ship out the seeds. People commit to or pledge to plant a 25 square foot habitat like this garden in my yard. And we put that on the map. And imagine if we had a patchwork of these gardens across Tennessee. We'd have a robust pollinator habitat. Pollinators are known to be on the decline significantly around the world. But there is something we can do about that. And that's what these opportunities are about, is what can you do at home to make a difference? Now, sometimes you do have to get away from the house, and we do have a number of opportunities, but water is obviously the essence of life and on this planet, and as far as we know in the universe. But our vision is that our waters are fishable and swimmable. They're clean. And currently, over a third of our state's waters are polluted, essentially. Cannot support healthy populations of fish and other aquatic life for a number of reasons. But we created a program called the Watershed Support Center, and we apply for EPA's 319 grants every year. And we do a number of projects that enhance the creek by putting bioremediation. These are coir logs being installed by our crew down in, this is Grassy Branch and Spring Hill, where we have an active project. And Rotary Club has supported and been involved in our Lytle Creek restoration project down in Murfreesboro as well over the past couple of years. And I do want to say thank you for all the support you've provided. The Rotary Clubs, not just here in Nashville, but in Rutherford County and across Tennessee. But we can go in and reduce the erosion that's going into the creeks, because erosion causes siltation, which reduces the habitat. So fish can no longer thrive in there and other creatures. But then also we replant these banks with grasses and shrubs and live stakes, and it captures the pollution before it enters the creek. And this is something we could be doing all across Tennessee. And so opportunity number 6 is you can volunteer this weekend. We've got Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Grassy Branch and Spring Hill, our active restoration project. You can learn this really cool restoration process, which is installing those logs and regenerating them with the vegetation. So I want to talk about trees. We all know that trees are the lungs of our planet, and I love the invocation. Thank you for choosing an invocation about trees to begin this meeting. That was beautiful. I was touched by that. And this is an aerial drone shot in the Bridgestone Nature Reserve at Chestnut Mountain up on the Cumberland Plateau near Sparta. And Bridgestone hired us to produce a video about this land that they were donating to the Nature Conservancy. So I went out there with a drone and shot some amazing, some beautiful imagery of that space. But since the beginning of the agricultural age, 12,000 years ago, people have wiped out or cut down more than half of the world's trees. And we still have in Tennessee, 52% of our land area is covered in canopy. So it's pretty significant. But you imagine cutting down half of the trees of the planet over the last 10,000 years, how much that has changed our climate, because the trees produce oxygen and they absorb CO2. So it's this incredible, they are indeed the lungs of our planet. So we created a program to plant more trees to replace those that are being cut down and hopefully expand the tree canopy in Tennessee. And we are actually working on a program called Natural Climate Solutions for Tennessee, where we're going to look at how much area is there in Tennessee that can be planted without infringing on farming or urban development. There's a lot of space out there, a lot of land areas we could have trees in balance with other uses, and see how much carbon could we actually capture and store, and oxygen can we produce. And the water quality benefits of the trees are enormous as well, because they capture the pollutants and the water before they run off into the streams. So Tennessee Tree Project was created with a goal of planting 1 million trees in Tennessee, native trees. We're up to 679,100 since 2007. And we've engaged tens of thousands of volunteers in that effort. And it's an incredible process. So we created a program or a project within the tree program called Tennessee Tree Day. And this project, Tennessee Tree Day, has been supported unanimously by the Tennessee General Assembly every year for the past 3 years through a joint resolution that is passed in both houses and signed by the governor. But Tennessee Tree Day is our way of engaging thousands of volunteers in this beautiful act of planting trees. So this picture here is the Tennessee State Nursery in East Tennessee, Polk County, an hour northeast of Chattanooga. This is where the state of Tennessee has a nursery that grows about 3 to 4 million trees a year, mostly for reforesting our agricultural lands, but forestry lands. And so they have the capacity to plant to harvest about 2 to 3 million additional trees a year. So we're looking at how we can maximize that, get those trees out across the state to the communities that need them. So we set up all these volunteer-run pickup locations all across Tennessee. Over 100 of these locations where people from the local community can come out, order trees, pick them up on the day before Tree Day or Tree Day itself, which is in late March. And Tennessee Tree Day 2021 is coming up on March 20th next year. But this is our most recent Tree Day, which was March 21st of this year. We planted 42,000 trees in a day, right before on the heels of the stay-at-home mandate. So we were scrambling to get those trees out there as the COVID restrictions every day were getting stricter and stricter. And we managed to get them out, get all the trees out there. Over 6,000 volunteers helped plant those trees. We always like to acknowledge our sponsors that helped make the whole effort possible. Down here in the lower right, all 95 counties participated, including surrounding states as well. These trees that we planted, you can see the map, each dot represents the locations where trees were planted in Tennessee. And 36 million pounds of CO2 will be captured by those trees over the next 20 years. And 196 million pounds of oxygen will be produced, and 7.5 billion gallons of rainwater absorbed before running off into the streams. So enormous benefits to the environment. And here's another map showing where we planted those trees this year, thanks to GIS mapping. It's a statewide opportunity. So that's opportunity number 7, is to register for Tree Day 2021, which registration opens in January. These programs that we've created, the composting, the pollinators, and the recycling, education, we've written a grant for the Tennessee Community Cares funding to bring those programs to the students that are at home in their classrooms, or their virtual classrooms at home, or in the traditional classroom during the COVID time for the next 3 months, so that students would have a chance to get outside and do some of these things, find out where they could plant a garden at home to attract pollinators, and examining the recycling, and also creating a compost operation at their homes. And we've created a curriculum around those activities so students can get out in front of the computer and get outdoors for a little bit, get some exercise and fresh air, and learn something as well. These are STEM-based activities. So always seeking how to bring our opportunities to more people. But the testimonials around Tree Day are so uplifting. Getting outside, this is one from Hamilton County. We got these quotes from people all across the state, but talking about how emotionally satisfying it is to get outside and plant trees, especially as this was right as COVID was locking people in their homes. So people are very pleased and have a feel-good experience planting these trees for Tree Day. It's an award-winning program with the Governor's Environmental Stewardship Award, and it's remarkable to see the photos populate our Facebook page. Families across the state planting trees. And we do create Facebook pages around our programs because it gives people a Facebook groups, which give people a chance to post their own pictures and to share their successes and ask questions. So it's really, we have a Tennessee Tree Day Facebook group that people are participating in. Oh, there's a blank slide. So trees. I just like to share this brief story, and I appreciate you roping my family into this conversation, Clark, in your introduction as well. This is my ex-wife, Heather, and our first daughter, Lily, when she was just over a year old, and we planted this sycamore tree that someone gave me as a gift in our new yard. We had just bought a home here in East Nashville. And so over the years, we watched our kids grow as well as that tree. And that's Lily's best friend, Vivian, when she was just 2 or 3 years old. And then we have a second daughter, Antonina. But that's the sycamore tree a couple years later. And then here it is about 10 years after we planted it. And I went out this morning because I wanted to show where it is now. I didn't get my daughters out because they were at school this morning, but I did go take a picture of that sycamore tree now. And so we planted in 2006, and it is a large tree now, and it's going to keep getting bigger. So it's amazing. It's a wonderful family experience for us to see trees grow, to plant them, and to share that joy of planting trees and taking care of our environment with people across Tennessee through the programs of Tennessee Environmental Council. Now, here's another opportunity for you all to get outside, and we want to, again, thank the Rotary Club, because your crew has come out to our Nashville Greenfield Restoration Project, and I'm sure many of the people on this call have been out there. It's another opportunity to create these ecological beneficial areas like the pollinator habitats and connect them with trails so people can come out, school kids and grown-ups can come out and learn about the environment and appreciate the beauty of this particular space, which is owned by Ford Motor Company. But we do have a volunteer opportunity coming up that you all are signed up for already, and we're doing it in collaboration with Rotary. But this is a remarkable property within iShed, as you could see from downtown Nashville. This is 120 acres. And we've created an arboretum, we've created a beehive area, lots of duck habitat, duck boxes, predatory bird habitats, lots of pollinator gardens, as well as the arboretum trail and tree zones. So we have a fruit orchard that the next image is us out there with you guys a year and a half ago or so. This is right next to the Ford glass factory, which is actually now the Carlex glass plant, planting the trees along the edge of that property. And here we are at the fruit orchard. And you can probably see some of your pictures out there if you were out there on that day. But it's November 14th coming up when we're going to be out there again with you all, removing invasive species, planting trees, as well as perhaps taking care of the pollinator habitat. Now, the property has been closed. Ford closed all their properties globally when COVID began. This was in early April. And so we've not been able to get out there since then, but Ford is opening it back up in September. So we'll be back out there with smaller groups of people wearing masks. And we've structured the activities to where people are a safe distance apart. Opportunity number 8, volunteer at the Greenfield, Saturday, November 14th. And I'm sure Clark, being the environmental chair, will send you the information on how to register and sign up for that event. And I look forward to meeting you in person out there on November 14th in the morning. It'll be at 9 a.m. to noon. So thank you, Noon Rotary Club of Nashville. There's my email address if you have any questions for me directly, and I know we can address a few questions here.